It's only 5.
Yeah.
The video is on, so cool. Meeting will come to order. Approval of minutes from the past meetings. Did Dan send the minutes last meeting?
And I
think he
was not
did.
at the last meeting, so
We're gonna hold that off. I need to make sure. Okay, Mayor, besides what we're gonna talk about, anything?
No,
Okay.
I am going to have a few things coming your way, but you know, you're used to it, so it'll hit you at council.
We move them quick here at finance.
Yeah, no, I know, so you'll know, it'll be a couple more capitals,
Okay.
you know, for things that are needed, expenditures that are needed, but there'll be capitals.
Okay, so,
Okay?
let's jump to the bonding, because I promised Jessica and Joe that I'd get you guys out of here. So we're bonding this amount, or is this just authorization to borrow?
Just an authorization. We're not gonna borrow.
We're not really gonna borrow unless you have to.
We're gonna borrow as needed. We're going to need the money, but we're not gonna need it all at once.
Okay.
We're gonna need it in stages.
And
we'll
this
borrow
is
as needed.
to leverage like $2 million in
Over
federal
3.
funds?
Over 3 in federal
million.
funds.
Yeah.
So this is hope to be funded through the Regional Transportation Improvement TIPS. The TIP is what it's called, TIP, Transportation Improvement Program. This is, there's about $50 million in federal money that comes down every year that gets programmed throughout the region, which is Hampden and Hampshire County. It's a very competitive transportation funding process.
Welcome.
Back door.
Hi.
Hey,
But it doesn't pay for design. So they won't even put you on the tip for consideration and funding until the design is at least at 25% design phase.
And is that what the 400,000 is gonna be used for?
The
For design.
450 is for design.
For storage.
So, like, this isn't anything new. You're familiar with any of the projects that we had on the tips, which it's wonderful that they pay for the project itself.
Yeah.
But the cities or communities pay for the design. So we go back to 450, a possible 450, and he said he was rounding up.
Right.
A possible 450 for an over $3 million
and,
project.
Okay.
okay, who's do you have to bid this design?
No, you
It's-
don't have to bid
We're
designs.
working with VHB, they're a transportation engineering firm, quite large. They specialize in this type of work.
But we do not have to bid it.
So if we borrow the money, we do the design, and we don't get the funding, it's still available, I assume, to try for it again next year.
This project is already being, I just went to a joint transportation meeting this morning. They're already talking about this project and programming it. They're very
Really?
excited about it. It's extremely competitive under the criteria process because it hits all of the things that it needs to hit in terms of how they allocate transportation money. We're talking about redesigning in such a way that we're making the streets safe for all modes of transportation. We're not looking at just car traffic, we're looking at bike traffic, we're looking at pedestrian, we're looking at transit, we're looking at how all these different modes can work safely together on this strip. And so the design is going to be taking into consideration all of those different modes of transportation and making it a very safe road. And we have an safety intersection problem right where the Manhan Trail crosses. It's a high crash location. That would be part of the design as well.
You're talking right out here.
This one
No,
as
where
well.
the-
I'm talking about at the Manhan
Liberty.
where it crosses
By
Union.
7-Eleven. By 7-Eleven.
Yeah, past
Oh,
7-Eleven.
so- yeah, okay.
There's 2 pedestrian crosswalks.
I'm sorry, I forgot where I was.
There's 2 pedestrian
7.
crosswalks. There's the Manhan Rail Trail that cuts right through that as well, and then you've got 2 off-aligned streets. So it's a very problematic intersection. And
So it's a major redesign with this kind of money.
Yes, but it's
It is.
also gonna be infrastructure too.
What does it entail, Joe?
Well, obviously, it's not just milling down 2 inches and putting back 2 inches of blacktop and come back and see it
Okay.
Right.
in 15 years. This is something that we're gonna have to redesign the drainage because we're gonna have to go with what's called all deep sumps to meet the new stormwater regulations. We're gonna also be looking at our water and sewer infrastructure and see, since we got it open, is that something we need, the water and sewer, is that something we need to upgrade at that time instead of 5 years after we put the new road in and say, oh gee, we need a new water line in there, we need a new sewer line in there. So this is gonna be all new, reset curbing, sidewalks, everything. This is
Does
gonna
it
be
change a street alignment, or
Yes.
is it redesign the streets?
It may, hopefully.
It may. the fact that the upper part of it is so narrow that that's gonna be, we have to wait to see what our engineers give us. There's not a lot of room to work, but the lower end around 7-Eleven and across from, you know, the dollar store, that's kind of wide, so we're gonna have to see what, you know, how that fits in. So it's gonna look a lot different, and it's gonna be a lot more pedestrian friendly, it's gonna be a lot more, accessible for people, they're gonna wanna
Safer.
go down there.
We can't widen the road, though.
You
right?
can't widen the road, no,
No.
but there's ways of making it safer. You
Right.
look at that intersection now with between Liberty and Railroad and the bike path,
Right.
and they're just too busy.
So
And your
they're
eyes have to
disconnected.
be in 16 different places as you're going through there, because there's always something going on.
Right.
So the idea is to simplify that, neaten it up so that it makes a little more sense.
And this
Are we
is
losing
something
any
too.
parking, Karen?
You
don't
never
know.
know, sometimes they add,
Right.
sometimes they take away.
Right.
But this is something too that, you know, you've heard it kind of requested, would be a nice word, why we haven't paved. Why are we not paving our downtown? This is why. This has been in the works, this isn't new, this hasn't been in the works, and we've been watching the funding for a couple of years now. We had our first walkabout, that had to be 2 years ago with DOT. And, you know, so once funding becomes available, we don't take our eyes off it. So this looks like a perfect project that we're just gonna fit right smoothly smack in. But the whole purpose, we knew at some point in time this was our plan and hoping it would be sooner than later, which is now, to get the design going, but we also knew that we would need to do infrastructure. So it made no sense to spend any of our 90 money blacktopping
pull it right
Union
up.
Street and then, you know, 2, 3, even 5 years later, rip it up to do, you know, to do a whole overhaul or do infrastructure. That's probably gonna be more than needed.
Sounds great.
Yeah. And we've had some preliminary meetings. Jessica, that was the Cecil Group.
So, yeah.
A couple of years ago.
Yep. So in 2013, we applied for a grant through, it's called the MIDI program. It's through Department of Housing and Community Development. It's the Mass Downtown Initiative Grant.
That was what I was trying to think of.
And they provided us $10,000 of technical services. They provided us with the Cecil Group, which is a landscape architecture and design firm out of Boston, very well known, very well respected. And they did a complete streets preliminary assessment for Union Street. Complete streets is the term that is used in transportation planning and engineering in regards to accommodating for all users. You're looking at all
Okay.
modes. It's a complete streets design. You're designing for all modes.
All purposes.
All purposes, all modes, all
Okay.
abilities, all ages. the
But we
whole-
had about 3 public hearings on that. I remember with the Cecil Group.
So we had, but I don't know if it was 3, but we definitely had
Yeah.
a couple public meetings. They were very well attended. I'd say we probably had about 50 people in the room. The report is on the planning department's page, so if you want to go look at it, it's there. And then from there, we started having conversations with VHB, who are engineers in the transportation side and are very knowledgeable on how to get projects through the TIP process and how to work with Mass DOT. And, because it's very political, it's very competitive and political, and it's very, staff need to be at those meetings to advocate.
Mhm.
It's a lobbying effort, you know, if you're not there, they will take it off the list.
So you sound pretty confident that we could get this.
As
soon as we get our 25% design, that's when you actually apply or something?
After my meeting today, they are gonna start programming for 2018, 2019, and 2020 next month. They brought up this project specifically as a project that they're looking to program in the next 3 years. Typically,
very
TIP
exciting.
projects are not funded for 5 to 7 years. So the fact-
Well.
or even longer.
We remember
So-
25 years.
Yes.
Do you remember, Dan? Some of our intersections?
Mhm.
We're on the tips for 25 years. Right, so that's why we're jumping.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so-
not jumping, but this isn't new.
So timeline,
And we're not using
when the
chapter
council borrows,
90.
when the council authorizes the borrowing, we get the design started. So it's by sometime, maybe by the end of this year,
Potentially, I
June or something,
I
we're
can't
gonna try and
remember.
get the design grant. I'm
How
just
long-
curious.
So they say 25% design, but it actually ends up being about 40% total of the project. What they don't do is the grading. They do the layouts and they figure out all of the layouts for the road, but they're not gonna do the grading. Because there's a whole process. It's, once they get the design done, we have a public meeting, it goes back to Mass DOT. Mass DOT has their comments, those comments
Oh
are
my God,
incorporated,
really?
they go back. I mean,
Very
it's
complicated.
And that's why the design money is so much, is because you are going back and forth to Mass DOT. You can, because they are overseeing the construction.
And can they tweak it?
Yes,
Oh, they do.
Are you
absolutely.
kidding?
And
They
we'll
do.
And
So
so
that's
that's
what
why
happens,
you
then you
have to
come
have,
back
it's not like
And you're
it's
gonna keep
25 done.
redesigning, so you need the funding available.
But that's why we also have somebody that works well
Right.
with them,
That's
so
right.
that they know the ins and outs, they, you know, they're
And
very
is that this
informed.
VHB people?
Yes,
Yeah.
and this particular person we're working with, Matt Chase, he's very well connected into Mass DOT, has already had preliminary discussions with them. I mean, Mass DOT is excited about this project, so, you know, I think it's,
So Karen, if we wanted to, you don't necessarily want to borrow, would you consider capital
No.
stabilization? Or do
No.
you wanna borrow
What
the
we,
money?
what we decided to do, because there was a little mention of chapter 90 at some point in time. We have such little chapter 90, you know, we don't get a lot every year.
Mhm.
So what we decided is we, you know, instead of capital, instead of enterprise, instead of this, instead of a little bit of everything, because we had looked at, you know, using a little of this, a little of that, a little of this. But, you know, the whole project is, he's thinking it might not be the whole 450, like he's trying to have a really good estimate of what it would be, because it can be like in 4 stages. So we decided that the best thing would be to borrow,
Wow.
and when we borrow, we only borrow the
What we
money
need.
as we need it.
Okay.
So that's how we pay it off, so we, you know, will we end up probably needing the whole 450? Probably, but if we only need 400, that's what the final amount that we will borrow. And to us, it's the same thing as a capital improvement, only to me, it makes more sense to bond this and have, you know, all the funding from one source and use it as we need it.
And is the money, if we borrow in increments, is the cost of the money the same?
We would get, when we go out to bonding, and that's why you'll
Our
see the
interest rates are
language.
pretty good, isn't it?
You'll see the language on here. We've been extremely lucky with our interest rates. But you'll see the language on here specifically for that bonding, which is required. And then, it's, what's his, I love that guy, I can't think of his first name.
Clark.
Who? Clark, yes. So he will set it up where he'll send it out to everybody, and then we go from there, right?
So,
And that's how we get our rate.
right, it's a bid process to
Yep.
get the rate, so it depends on the market. As interest rates go up, we pay more. Short-term borrowing costs less than long-term borrowing as a whole.
Are we doing short term, is that what you're saying, if we can?
In increments like that, probably.
Okay.
And what's the payback then? Like, what are we talking about when you say short-term?
A year to 3 years.
Okay, that's good.
But our last, and again, that's why it's so important, like, you know, when we were able to increase our bond rating by 2 points, that's why it's so important, because that's what they look at when they bid on, you know, on the rates.
Yeah.
They're looking at your community.
Right.
Well, they're gonna
So-
look at how much money we have at the bank, too,
Right,
so
you
that's
know,
great.
so we've been really lucky with our bond, with our rates.
So, just to review, this is a major project. It's been something we've been thinking about for years. It's something that became on our radar for the TIP projects recently, in that they're very interested in this project and you want to work quickly to get the design process moving, but it is a 3 to 5 year process. We may not get to see any actual shovel in the ground work or the grant actually happening for a few years.
Oh, yeah.
But we have to have at least 25 to 40% of the design work done before they'll even look at it.
Before they'll, yes. So as soon as we tell them the design work is starting,
Mhm.
they can program it, but these meetings, things are getting shifted around every meeting. This project falls down because they're behind schedule. This one
Right.
can slip in all of a sudden. So it's this trading game that happens at the JTC meetings,
Mhm.
and where things get programmed. So something falls apart in a different community and we're ready to go. We could even come in a little bit ahead than what we think.
And
So
what,
it's
and what
really,
Jessica's saying too is we've watched for the funding, so we knew a couple of years ago the fundings were gonna start being available. Sometimes there aren't a lot available, but we knew different projects that were going to be funded.
Well, it sounds like to me that I want to move this
Yes.
public
yeah.
hearing immediately, so that
That'd be great.
it'll be, I have to announce it, I didn't announce it the last meeting, so the next council meeting, which is next week, will be when I ask for the public hearing, so it'll be the first meeting in February that we will have the public hearing. You may want to come and explain it, some people don't like
Definitely.
borrowing, but I think
Yeah.
it's, you know, especially since it's short-term, it sounds like the best way to do it, so. This sounds great, we need to do this, I mean, $3 million? That's pretty
Yeah,
good.
it's over 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions, Beck?
Just when you said 3, so the 3 million, what is that?
The project.
So the
The
doing
cost of the
of it?
project.
Construction.
Yeah, the cost of the project.
seems
It's
like not
over 3
much.
million. I think it was 32, but it was like the estimate, it was over 3 million for the entire project.
So
Not the
that's-
design.
Right, so the grant is 32, or
The-
3 million.
The tips,
too.
yes.
But we don't know really, until they do the design, the degree to which that 3 million is gonna get us what we want.
And as materials costs change, I mean,
Right.
the price of oil directly impacts the cost of paving.
Right.
It's very
Right.
tightly linked.
So there is
So-
a potential that, let's say we get 3.2 million, the project could be 4 million. Do we have to come up with 800,000?
No.
That's the part of the
That's
tip
the
process,
beauty.
is that you go in
That's a
and you
very
say.
important
That's
point.
the
And you say,
beauty.
you go in and you say, all right, our project is running over.
Yep.
This project's not ready, can we sneak in and get an extra 500? I mean, this is what happens at these meetings, is there's this,
Well,
it's a
because
horse
you-
trading that's happening, and you've gotta be there, and you've gotta,
So by getting the grant, we get the work, and they have to manage the
well, we have to advocate
overruns.
to make sure that we don't
Right.
get kicked off. the
But I
Well,
mean, as long
Mass
as-
DOT is approving the design, and it sounds like once it's approved,
Right.
they gotta find a way to fund it. They-
Right, well.
Well, they have-
They don't
they
have
have-
to find a
It's
way.
to
Nah,
their
tips.
advantage.
There's $50 million
To
on
keep
the
things
table for
moving.
43 communities in the region.
Right.
So we are all fighting for this pot of money. There is not enough
There's
money to go
no,
around.
there's no chance that they would get halfway through it and then go, oh.
No, you either get it or you don't.
Once you're
No, no, no.
committed and you're in the process and
Yeah.
it's moving forward,
Okay.
they manage the project, they put out the bid documents,
like
they
an
take care of
approval.
everything.
That's
It's more
very-
like an
That's
approval.
good too. So what you're saying is, if we get the grant and they said the project's approved, they're gonna pay for it.
Yes.
They pay
It's
for
a
it.
done deal.
Yeah.
Nice.
You're not gonna come back to us and say, look, the project's over cost by 500,000, we
No.
need to bond
No,
more
but we
money.
have to be at those meetings to make sure that
Right.
if there is
The
a
only
project.
time they go over costs, and it does happen at different times, is if we do things that weren't in the plan.
Change the
Like say we
requirements.
decide at the very end, we want a little extra that isn't
Right.
part of the approved plan,
Right.
that we want to do while we're there.
Yeah.
But that's
Change
why it's
orders.
important that the
They go ahead and
design,
pay for it.
Yep,
right.
That makes
But that's why, I
Well, that
mean,
would make sense.
And
Now,
the
now,
water.
the other thing you have to remember too, is that any water and sewer work that's done here
is
Right.
on our done.
will be done underneath this, under this contract, but will be funded not by the grant, but
Right.
out of retained
You're
earnings,
just gonna
water
take
and sewer.
advantage of the fact that they're exposed.
That is
That's
a-
correct.
And
And take
they-
advantage of the
they're gonna
fact
pay
that we have a
for
contractor.
watching it, the
Right.
job.
We have a contractor on site, the same contractor will do that
Exactly.
work. The
That
state
is-
will oversee that work, they will bill us for that work, and then we will pay them for that water and sewer work.
which is,
Reimbursement.
like as Patty said, that's huge.
That's huge.
Yeah,
That's
that we
huge.
don't have to bid it, we're gonna get a
Right.
better price because the same
I was just gonna
company
ask.
says, oh, yeah.
There, while you're there,
Check
Well,
this
Bobby's
out.
it's,
open.
you,
Yeah.
but that has been our plan, this, like I said, that we're, it sounds like we're talking about moving fast, but it's really been a few years.
Yeah.
But this has been our
Now
plan,
you're
but once
ready
you
to
know
move.
funding is available, that's when you hop, so we're hopping.
Are we well aware of what we might need? I mean, you're aware of whether sewer lines and water lines definitely need to be replaced, or do you have to wait until you get into the
No,
project?
that's one thing we're gonna be doing this winter, coming into the spring, we're gonna be TVing the sewer lines, and we're gonna be looking at the water
Doing
lines.
some
just-
radar, how do you?
Lovely movie.
Never mind, I don't even know.
Well,
how
the
you
sewer
do it.
lines, you can run a TV camera down.
Oh, right.
It's on Netflix.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Streaming
we'll be
live.
playing that at the next finance subcommittee
We
meeting.
can watch during the-
Sewer,
See some rats,
Yeah.
you know,
It's what we call
Very
dirty
good.
movies,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah.
All right.
Oh.
But,
but on phone.
Jeff said it
Question.
first.
Oh, you had said they're teeing up projects for 18, 19, and 20. Do we know where we might?
No, I
Until
don't.
we get the design.
It all
Done.
See, right now, everybody's pushing for the door.
Yeah.
So we need to get in line and get ahead of them with our design.
Okay.
And I'll just note that Matt Chase goes to every single JTC meeting. He's the only private consultant that goes to these meetings. Typically, it's municipal representatives. So, if I can walk in there next month with our city engineer and say, we've got design money in place, we're moving forward, we've got a contract in place with VHB, our timeline is X, they can say, okay, we'll try to fit you in here, and
So as soon as council approves this, you could say that?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
that makes me more anxious
Let's
to
do
get
it.
this done. Okay, well,
Okay.
it's a win-win.
And he's hoping that with this weather like it is, and we're hoping it's gonna stay like this, that they could actually start doing some survey work.
Yeah, I can't tell you, this is an aside, when Barbara said, by the way, the new state law, you don't have snow emergencies anymore, I went,
Right.
oh my God, I like somebody.
It's easy, it's a lot streamlined for us too.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, for us, it's a lot easier too.
Anyway, do you have anything else, Beck?
No, sounds good to me.
Motion, please,
Motion to, wait, I don't have the paper in front of me.
to approve 450.
Motion to approve $450,000 to be funded by borrowing, to be borrowed or bonded for the purpose of paying for the complete redesign of
I'll
Union and Cottage.
second that motion. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, public hearing for the first meeting in February. Thank you both for coming.
Thank you.
Very informative,
Thank you, Mr. Dillon.
very
Thank you.
informative.
See you later.
Matt.
Yeah,
I actually called.
you know I had to say it.
I called you, but you weren't there.
Thanks, Matt.
No, I was just
Thanks,
teasing
Bill.
you.
Okay, sick leave buyback.
Sick leave.
There will be 2 members retiring in early 2017. The current collective
You
bargaining
got it.
agreement calls for the city to buy back 50% of unused sick time. So this is a union collective bargaining contract. We don't have any choice.
Right.
Correct? You
Yeah.
can say no, but
They
then...
get 50% of their unused sick time.
You still have to pay for it. We just have no place to take the money from.
Right.
Okay. It sounds pretty straightforward. We have to do it. That's why... Do you, by the way, I just wanted to know, I know you guys don't know when they're retiring, but do you have an idea of when you set the budget that you might have a retirement coming up?
It all depends what department, like some employees, actually it depends on the employee. Some employees like to give you notice, some don't. It's, you know, you can't require it, so when they do, they do, when they don't, they don't.
Oh.
So, you know, when we know, we know.
Okay.
It makes it easier if we know ahead of time. If we know ahead of time, then things are in the budget. If we don't, they're not.
Okay.
You know, you can't assume somebody is.
Sometimes they talk about doing it and don't.
Right. Which
Okay.
You gotta wait
happens.
until they actually.
Well, that's what the
You have to
reserve
wait until
fund-
they have a date or till
Well,
they're
what they do
gone?
is they actually will put in a notice.
Don't they have
Actually,
to
you
do
know,
a
so-
notice of some kind? They
Uh,
can't just say, I'm retiring tomorrow. They could?
Here they can, yeah.
Okay, well, that
Yeah,
makes,
they can, yeah.
that makes financial planning
And-
really fun.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
but, you know, like, again, it depends on the employee.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have had employees that have done that. And then we have others that, you know, give you, you know, a 6-month notice.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, so it just depends on the person. It helps us, the more notice we have, the
Man,
better,
Lord.
yeah, the better it is for us.
Do you have to have notice on key players, like the chief of police?
No, that's what I mean. Well, contract players, it'll say in their contract.
Okay.
You know, some might be 30 days, 60 days, whatever.
Yeah.
But none, these are not.
This is the union, so
Yeah,
it's
they're
different.
not
Okay.
they're not contract employees.
They're
Okay.
They're,
under
have a
the collective
contract for their.
bargaining contract.
Yeah, but they're not contract
Ah,
employees. A
okay.
little different.
All right.
Well, I have no other questions. I saw this, I said, well, gotta do it.
Yeah.
I'll move that we approve supplemental interdepartment transfer, 45,056, out of the reserve fund to pay for fire sick leave buyback.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
I'll public hearing this too for February. All right,
Okay,
Ken?
so this is January. I gotta look, I can't. do it
February
in my
1st, I
head.
think, is a Wednesday.
Where are we?
I will be in beautiful
Okay, so you,
Huntington Beach, California.
you have a, I don't wanna hear that. You have a council meeting on the 18th, so then you'll request, then you'll put them down.
I have to put them on public hearing for, what is the
You'll
first
put them
meeting?
on public
February
hearing
1st, isn't it?
for the, yeah, February 1st.
Mhm.
Okay, perfect, thank you,
Mm-hmm.
that's good.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks for the
you
ride.
very much.
Do we have a finance meeting on the 25th?
I was just told by the mayor that I'm getting stuff, so probably.